Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
I'm Mark Golub, and imagine being a Sabra who has an international persona, has lived much of one's life in the United States and in Europe, is fluent in multiple languages, including German, and decides to travel throughout Israel and the West Bank posing as a non-Jewish German journalist and pulling it off, thereby gaining access to all kinds of events and situations, Israeli and Palestinian cities, visiting Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Haifa, Hebron, Ramallah, speaking with the President of Israel and various Israeli leaders and rabbis and ordinary Jews on the one hand, and with a host of Palestinians from high-ranking leadership to ordinary Palestinian men and women on the other. And because you're perceived to be a non-Jewish journalist from Germany, everybody opens up to you in a way people don't typically express themselves because they censor themselves. Doesn't it sound fascinating? And then if you're extremely bright and have a sharp sense of humor and an appreciation for the irony of life, appreciate how people often tend to fool themselves, crafting positions that justify their preconceived personal agendas, how that's all the more fascinating. What a journey this could be. Well, it's not a theoretical imagination. This is exactly what a most unusual man actually did. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Tuvia Tenenbom, author of a #1 bestseller in Israel entitled Catch the Jew, published by Geffen Books, the amazing story of Tuvia's romp through Israel and the West Bank with a video crew of 3, beginning in 2013 and ending many months later in 2014, in which he describes with his own delightful sense of irreverent humor the conversations he has with a host of Israelis and Palestinians whom Tuvia describes as spiritual leaders and prostitutes, professors and miracle makers, warriors and storytellers, talkers and doers, racists and lovers, peace activists of every kind, and politicians of every sort, people of faith, people of doubt, seekers of truth and merchants of lies, women of many minds and men of many colors, young and old, rich and poor. By the way, you should also know that Tuvia Tenenbom is the founder of the Jewish Theater of New York, the only English-speaking Jewish theater in the city, and for which Tuvia has written more than 16 plays. He's a journalist who's published in Germany, in Italy, in Yediot Achronot in Israel, and in the foreword here in the United States. And his earlier bestseller, I Sleep in Hitler's Room, which describes the spread of anti-Semitism in Europe today, was published both in German and in English. And Tuvia Tenenbom, how wonderful it is to have you sitting at this table.
I know,
thank you.
How wonderful it is to be with you, and thank you for having me.
You're very sweet. First of all, I love the book.
Thank you.
It's a hefty book and a wonderful read. Mazal tov on this
Thank
book.
you.
You know, and obviously you're a gifted writer.
Thank you.
I want to start just a little bit about you personally.
Yeah.
So you're born in B'nei Brak to what you describe as an ultra-Orthodox family.
Yeah.
I want to know about your father and your mother.
Okay. My mother is survived the concentration camp, Holocaust survivor. My father, his father left Poland in 1938, so they evaded. Everybody who stayed has gone. And so I come from this kind of background, this baggage. And I grew up in B'nei Brak, which some people call Boy Brak, in a neighborhood My neighborhood is called Chazonish, which the B'nei Brakim, the B'nei Brakers called, who are all ultra-Orthodox, said on my neighborhood they called it the Vatican Quarter. So we were like the top of the top. There are all the rabbis of the Lithuanian persuasion, Misnagdish, or whatever you call it, you know, the ones who are the poskim, whatever, the ones who decide everything in religious life.
And if I saw you and experienced you as a child, what was your life like as an ultra-Orthodox young Jew?
My life, I left it, as you can tell.
I know, we'll get there.
But
my
life was actually very good. I skipped 5 grades. I finished my yeshiva already at the age of 14. I was already, they call it kibbutz, whatever they call it.
By the way,
but
you
it
do
was
have smicha, correct?
Obviously,
you
I
are
mean, this is the
Orthodox rabbi.
Yeah, in the ultra-Orthodox world, smicha is not like a little zettel. It's the Rosh Hashiva or the Rebbe say, now I give it to you, you do this. And that's a smicha in the ultra-Orthodox world. Yes, so I am not the ones who left, you know, there are many of those who left. From my neighborhood, as far as I know, nobody left. You know, my neighborhood is like the top of the top. Nobody lives there. But from those you see in the media who left the ultra-Orthodox world, they complain about the tzuras and the bitterness and all that stuff. I'm sorry, I don't have such touching stories.
Okay.
I was beloved. I was embraced. Everybody spoiled me. And my life there was good. I just left it because I got to believe that what I was taught had nothing to do with Judaism.
All right, we'll talk about that for a while.
But
you understand that's so fascinating to me. I believe roughly you're 25 years old when you leave Israel for America.
A little bit younger, but something like that.
And you go because you want to study science and the arts. That's what you write in the book.
Yeah, I wanted to study in university.
Which was denied to you at home.
Of course.
Okay, talk about that a little bit. Because it's fascinating for American Jews to hear.
I mean, we studied the Talmud, we studied the poskim, we studied, you know, Judaism, and whatever it's called secular studies. In my community, was not allowed.
Forbidden.
When it was forbidden. Before I left Israel, I didn't know one word in English. I didn't in any language. I mean, it's like basically, I didn't know anything about arithmetic. Forget mathematics. You know, 5 times 5 would require, I'd say, you know, ask the goyim, because they are good at it. We don't do that. And yeah, and then I left because
Hold on, don't jump the story. Don't jump my story.
Okay.
This is too good to be true, having you at this table. Okay, so as you are this young person who has no exposure to secular science, secular education, what was your view, your family's view and your view, of the Israeli, the secular Israeli, the non-Orthodox, or certainly the non-ultra-Orthodox Israeli that you knew were all around you?
The ones now. In the B'nei Brak, they are all ultra-Orthodox in my time.
But you know what Israel is at the time, don't you?
At the time, no. I was very sheltered. Really? I didn't know. I remember one day, I was like around 14, I was very, very sick, and somebody gave me a book to read, a novel, roman, as you call it in Hebrew. And there was a story about John and Patricia. First of all, the names were like totally crazy for me. It should be Yankele and Getzel and Figele, I mean, which makes sense. I mean, there's Yankev, there is a reason in the Bible it says why it's called Yankev. Now it's named John. What is John? Patricia? Anyway, so I'm reading the story, and John invites Patricia for dinner, candlelight, you know, and the ganze Masse, and then he touches her, and he kisses her, and I just like, oh, Master of the Universe, people do these things? It's like, it was mind-boggling to me, because in our community, in my community, if a woman passed by, we have to close your eyes, you know, and continue walking or move to the other side of the street. You have no idea how many times a woman was passing by, and I moved my head like this, and I banged myself into a bus stop pole. So I remember I said to myself, wow, this is interesting. So I went out, I went to my window, and I looked out.
Which hospital were you in?
Not hospitalized, in the yeshiva.
Okay. You just weren't well.
Yeah, just well, yeah. And I looked out and I saw women for the first time, and I said, oh, wow, it's an amazing thing.
Okay, but you're only 14 years
I was
old.
14, yeah.
Okay.
And so I went and I decided I have to go. And I went out, I went to the newsstand. I've never been to a newsstand before. And I bought on one shelf, the second shelf in the middle, the middle shelf, I bought all the papers. And I opened the papers to read. And I discover that Germany has a chancellor, not a rabbi, that France has a president. You know, I always know in the yeshiva world, you say, when you ask a question, you say, the Welt fragt, you know, העולם מקשה, you know, the world is asking. So you think the whole world is a yeshiva world. And all of a sudden you realize, no, there are no Rosh Yeshivas in France. You know, it's not the Rosh Yeshiva who is like the king of France. You know, it's like, all of these were big discovery.
Okay.
And then I went to the library and I started reading, so I exposed myself.
Did your father know you were doing this?
No, God forbid.
God forbid.
So I exposed myself to, you know, I went to the library and I went
Did you feel like
book after book after book.
Did you feel like you were sneaking around?
No, I felt I was doing what a Jew should do. For me, Judaism is ask questions, and whatever happens to you in the world, you don't ignore it. You try to figure it out.
That's not what you were taught in the yeshiva.
This is not what I taught in the yeshiva, but I was teaching myself also.
Where do you think
because
oh, I'm serious. Where do you think that comes from in you? And there are many ways, and the audience should know this. And if you ever get a chance to take a look at Catch the Jew, and I hope you all do, it's a fabulous insight into a piece of Israeli and Palestinian mindset we never get to see, and I want to talk to you about that. But it's but one of the things you sense right away is that Tuvia Tenenbom's a very bright, you know, spectacularly bright, interesting human being. And so I'm asking you, I'm assuming part of the drive that you're now describing comes from simply whatever genes you were given from your parents, but you do understand how you're breaking with a whole sense of tradition that you grew up with.
I know.
When you go to the library, right?
I know.
And it's interesting for me to hear you say you felt it was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, from my perspective, whenever we study the world, natural sciences, chemistry, biology, it's also Torah. But that's not what Torah meant to the yeshiva world you were in.
Yeah, but if you really study the Talmud, not just have the rabbi explain to you the Talmud, you take the Talmud on your own, and you study beyond what the Rosh Yeshiva, the rabbi tells you, and you go on the pages, and you see an amazing, this is a bunch of hundreds of rebels who disagreed with each other, totally, there was no one who agreed with anyone, and if a rabbi said, they said, okay, akapura on him, I don't care what he says, I say differently. And even if God says, comes God's voice and says, he is right, and the rabbi says, who are you to tell me what's right? That's the Talmud. And that's what you discover in the Talmud. You have to ask questions. You cannot accept the rabbi to tell you what it is. And so I challenged my rabbis, of course. I challenged my rabbis. I said, wait a second. The black cloth we are wearing is not from Moses. It's not from Abraham. It's not from the rabbis, the Talmudic rabbis. They are coming from Austria, from Poland. I checked it. So that came into...
Okay. So this begins at 14, 15.
But I can tell you one thing. I am grateful that I had the pleasure and the opportunity, being in the ultra-Orthodox world, to first of all study the Talmud. Because outside of the Orthodox world, sadly enough, in the Reform world, or in the conservative world, they don't know the Talmud. This is a huge part of Jewish culture, of what makes Judaism. And they don't know it. They don't even know the Bible. And that I was given this opportunity, I don't regret for a second
That's beautiful.
that I was in the ultra-Orthodox world.
However, it's very hard for me to believe you're not in anywhere resentful of the extent to which you were limited before you went off on your own.
I think they are wrong, and I've said it 10,000 times. I think they are wrong. I think that what they are doing, big part of it, of all the prohibitions, are not Jewish prohibitions. Big part of the sexual prohibitions has nothing to do with Judaism. They have more to do with Catholicism. Jews have been in Catholic worlds, in Catholic worlds, lived there in Europe for many, many years, and they have adopted some of those traditions that have nothing to do with Judaism. I mean, the rabbis were the biggest, the rabbis were the biggest flirters. Sorry to say that. I mean, they would be, some of them would go to jail in our modern world of politically correct, just for the way they talked. They would be like sexual abusers. I mean, this is the reality.
Yes. So at what point, I said you were about 25, you said you were a little bit earlier
Yeah,
than
I
that.
think so, whatever, yeah.
Whatever, but your early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s, yeah.
You decide you're going to leave Israel.
Yep.
But wait, this doesn't...
I decided I wanted to go to university.
Okay, but this didn't happen one day. It builds, does it not?
Of course it builds.
And at some point, your parents do see this happening to their son. And I'm curious to know the dynamic between you and your parents as it became more and more evident that their son...
They tried to match me up with girls. You know, they introduced me to the richest girls in the community. You know,
you were attached.
I remember, one girl, I'll never forget it. She had this bracelet, this necklace, and they were all diamonds. I mean, huge diamonds. It's like the Queen of England doesn't have them. But
you were
I
not seduced.
No, I was not seduced. I wanted to study.
Okay.
I wanted to know the other world. And for the family, it was a shame. For my mother especially, in her mind, she did not survive the Holocaust, so that her son will be a student in university. Mm-hmm. So I took the plane and left.
Tuvia, was it hard for you vis-a-vis your parents, and did you ever reconcile with them? What happened to the relationship with you and your parents?
My mother was, both of them were very ultra-Orthodox. I mean, ultra-Orthodox, anti-Zionist ultra-Orthodox.
Anti-Zionist.
But I remember the rest of my family remained ultra-Orthodox. But I remember my father, before he passed away, I was at his house with my sister, who is ultra-Orthodox, and he looks at both of us, and he points at me, and he says, "You are a religious man." And he points at my sister, and he says, "And you are not." And we both look at him, and he said, "Daddy, what happened to you? Already Alzheimer?" So fast. And my father said, "No. You fight with God." He said, pointing at me. "And nobody who fights God does not believe him. You," on the other hand, he pointed at my sister, "you obey the rabbis. You don't know God. You don't know what God is. You have never talked to him. You talk to the rabbis. You worship the rabbis." So it was amazing to see it from my father. But it was hard for him when I left first, of course. It was very hard for him. But I remember another thing. One time he says to me, he said, when I was already doing Jewish theater, and he said, "I prayed to the Lord every day that you would be the biggest Rosh Yeshiva, the biggest rabbi. But you have chosen to be a playwright. So I pray to the Lord that you would be the best playwright and the most successful playwright." But he was very different kind of Haredi, ultra-Orthodox rabbi. So obviously I got something from him. I'm his son. So it was these times, it was hard for them. I left. And when I left, I started reading newspapers. And I remember on the entrance to our house, it was an apartment building. You could see it was sprayed in red and white. Here, a Nazi lives, and he reads secular books and media. It was like ridiculous.
Referring to you?
What? Of course. And so it wasn't easy.
Yes.
But at the same time, nothing is black and white, put it this way. Nothing.
It's a wonderful understanding your father had. What was your father's name?
Akiva.
Akiva. And your mother?
Devorah.
Akiva and Devorah. That's lovely. Okay, you come to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And then very, very quickly, what's your journey that you end up also in Germany?
What's my journey at the end of in Germany? I came to the United States. The first thing I wanted to study is mathematics. Because I knew nothing about it, I wanted to have a degree in mathematics.
So you got a degree in mathematics?
Oh yeah, of course. My bachelor's degree is a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics.
From?
Tuvia College.
Tuvia College, yeah.
And then I went to other universities. I studied in many universities. I spent 15 years in universities, studying all kinds, including St. John's, New York University.
Then how do you get to Germany?
I got to Germany. I got married to my wife, Izzy.
Who's here?
He was here, right here.
Lovely.
And she lived in Germany. I got to know her because one of our shows, our theater shows, called The Diary of Adolf Eichmann, was playing in Germany, in Hamburg. That's where we met, and she lived in Germany, so I started being in Germany.
And you learned German?
German, I know through Yiddish. And Yiddish, I really learned. My parents sometimes talked about it, but usually they talk to us in Hebrew. But Yiddish, to speak Yiddish, I learned in Williamsburg. When I came to New York, I ended up first in Williamsburg. And I worked there also. I was a silversmith. Because I was illegal.
All the things you were illegal?
Yeah, of course.
Did you ever become legal?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Now I have a passport. American dream.
Very good. All right, so that's your Bowie. We could spend a whole hour just talking about any one of these pieces. But I want to now come to this journey that leads to Catch the Jew.
Yeah.
So what's the genesis of the idea for you, Tuvia, that you're going to pretend to be a non-Jewish German journalist and you're going to visit Israel and the West Bank?
Put it very simple. I'm a journalist for the paper called Die Zeit, which is like the New York Times of Germany. I'm also a columnist for the online version of Die Zeit online. And I have been asked a few years ago, by a German publisher to write a book about Germany and to stay in Germany longer and write a book about Germany, which I did, and it became a huge bestseller. And
I Sleep
in Hitler's Room. And then, after it became a huge bestseller, my editor at the company, the publisher.
One moment. It was a controversial bestseller.
It was, controversial, yeah. Because the beginning,
yes.
the original publisher, to make the long story short, the original publisher, when they read the book, they said, no, we are not going to publish it.
Because?
They wanted to change it. Why? Because my findings were that Germany today, sadly to say, has the same mindset as it had a century ago.
In the 30s?
Yeah.
The same mindset?
Same mindset.
Your mother was a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the same kind of mindset in Germany?
You don't have SS people on the streets. You don't have the Gestapo on the street. But when you talk to people, you have to understand. I went with my wife together for 6 months traveling Germany. South, north, east, west, center, everywhere. From the chancellor, the famed chancellor, Helmut Schmidt, to the lowest of the social level and educational level in the country, and everything in between, whatever I could find. I did not set out to write a book about Jews. It's 85 million people, about 85 million people live in Germany. About 100,000, between 100,000 and 200,000, depending on which version you accept, are Jews. Most of them Russian Jews. I thought maybe I'll write 3 pages about Jews. But wherever I walked, people talked to me about Jews, and in negative terms. The Jews are doing this, the Jews are destroying the world, the Jews. So what I'm saying is that the mindset of the people, I'm not saying that, they're actually barren, there's no crematoriums today, thank God. But the mindset of the people. And how do you get to crematoriums? You start with mindset. That's the problem. Everything is Jews. The Jews are the richest people in the world. I mean, the old Chazirai, as they call it, of anti-Semitism. They put Obama, they own 70% of the money in the world, of the financial resources. I mean, it's like, and they wake up in the morning and they kill Palestinians. And that's what Jews do. Everywhere you walk, you talk about this. You ask people, it was the financial crisis, and I ask people, how do you fare? How did the financial crisis affect you? And the people say, well, it depends on them. And I say, on them, on whom? You know, the ones who have the money. And I ask, who are they? I say, you know, the rich, the global rich. I say, who are the global rich? I would like to know also. Give me the address. I say, don't you know? The Jews. The Jews created the financial crisis of 2008. I mean, you hear these kind of things, and you're just like,
it took your breath away in a way,
yeah.
didn't it?
And everywhere you go, you have the same story, the same story. Then demonstrations on the streets, you know, against Israel. I mean, the Iraq war, you demonstrated against Israel. I mean, it's like all those things together add up all of a sudden. And
Tuvia, take one moment, just one moment.
Yeah.
When you see the spread of anti-Semitism, not in Germany alone, but in Great Britain, and then this horrific anti-Semitism in France. And people should know, as we're doing this taping, it is days after there was this horrible incident in Copenhagen.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, you know Europe far better than most of us. What's your feeling? Where does this come from? And how worried are you about anti-Semitism and the Jews of Europe?
Well, sadly, the Jewish organization here in America or even in Israel are thinking only in terms of Muslims and Jews. They think that the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe is an Islamic thing. They got it wrong. It's not an Islamic thing. It's a Christian and atheist thing. It's the old European mindset that's coming back. They found a better way. You know, there was the Holocaust, and after the Holocaust, it was not the fad. It was not politically correct to be Jew hater. So if you hated Jews, you wouldn't say it. Now, slowly, it took us 70 years, and they bring it back, getting out of. They feel okay. We did good to the Jews for the last half a decade, half a century. Now we can go back, basically, and that's what happens. The anti-Semitism in the European world is frightening. What they think of Jews is frightening, and I'm not talking about the Muslims here. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the normal Europeans and the normal Germans, where I live, all over. If people with PhDs, doesn't matter. Prostitutes on the streets. It's a huge mindset.
You know,
you look at the children's book. Children's book. I just saw it 2 weeks ago in Oldenburg. The children's book that the German government is approved. And you see, there is one story about, you know, third and fourth graders. So one story is about me messing up, the kid messing up with the spaghetti and mama bothering me about my birthday. Another story about Papa who is smart and strong and beautiful. And in between the stories, an educational story about the Jews who came in 1948 to a land called Palestine for no reason and took it over from the Palestinians. That is it. That's how you teach your kids. These stories take in. And then advice to the teacher, the materials for the teacher are to explain the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, draw a map of the Holy Lands, put Bethlehem here and Jerusalem here, and then tell the children to create from paper a wall, so the Jews come to strangle the Palestinians. You give it to them from childhood. That's the reality. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
Tuvia, do you worry for the future of European Jewry?
Well, I think that American Jews,
Netanyahu has
I think American Jews, I think American Jews and European Jews don't know how to deal with this issue. Mm-hmm. I am practically almost the only one writing in normal center-to-left German media, and I write about these issues. I make fun of these issues. And the two books, I Sleep in Hitler's Room and Catch the Jew, have become an amazing bestsellers in Germany. No advertisement. The world, the people are willing to listen. The common man and woman are willing to listen.
Isn't that a good sign? Isn't that a good sign?
That's a good sign. But one of the problems is you have to fold some Jews too. Many Jews, Jewish organizations, first of all, are afraid to talk. Let's not talk about it. If we don't talk about it, it will not happen. It's a dream. It's a pathetic dream. Number one. And number two, you don't fight it. They cannot fight it back. They don't know how to fight it back.
Do you know how to fight it back?
I do it. It's my bread and butter, as I say.
What are they not doing you'd want them to do?
Stare at the people and say to them, hey guys, you are rotten anti-Semites. You are rotten racist, and I'm sorry for you. I say to you, we go, my wife and I, we go all over in cities in Germany, speak to thousands of people. The places are packed with young people. And what do I say to them? Say, listen, I don't hate you. If I hated you, I wouldn't be writing for you. You can't write to a reader you don't like. But I think you are sick. I think you have cancer. The cancer of the mind. You are still horribly anti-Semitic. And I say to you, my dear brothers and sisters, if you die from it, it's going to be your fault. You are going to suffer from it by the end of the day more than I.
I'm sorry, Tuvia, you're really worried that the Jews are going to die from it?
Look, of course the Jews are going to die from it. I mean, the book, Catch the Jew. What I did not believe, I mean, the reason why the book came into being, he is answering your question
how did you fight? Very good. Perfect.
After the success of the book, I sleep in Hitler's room. My editor says to me, I like him, I love him. And he says to me, Tuvia.
What's his name?
Winfried Herning.
Okay, Winfried says to you.
Yeah, Winfried says to me, you have done a marvelous book for us, 6 months in Germany. Would you now go to the place where you were born, Israel? Stay 6 months over there. Do whatever you want and write a book about it. The same as you did about Germany. Well, and that's how it happens.
Fabulous, fabulous. I just want our audience to know. By the way, Tuvia does not call his chapters chapters. He calls them gates. And each chapter is another gate, sometimes long, sometimes short. There are 55 gates in Catch the Jew. And if you look at the table of contents, you have a sense of what each chapter is like and what he's trying to do. But what it really is, each gate takes you to a different place, introduces you to a different person. And I want you to let me tell you some of the gates that I'm most interested in, and I want to hear your reaction to. Can I do that?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. First of all, I want you to tell me whether I've got it right or wrong. You described many meetings, and with Israeli Jews, with Palestinians, with Germans who are visiting, and you pass as a non-Jewish German, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It's not that you paint them all with a critical brush, but very often, Tuvia, and I want to know whether this is true, whether I'm reading it correctly, you feel that they're naive in their understanding. Jew and Palestinian and the people who come from outside, from Europe, German and otherwise, just have no clue about what the real world is. Is the word naive a fair word, or would you rather a different word?
It depends on which part, and that is divided. When I decided to go to Israel and I agreed to go to Israel, the Israel I remembered is the Israel I left about 33 years earlier. The Israel I left had two tribes, the Arab and the Jew. The Israel I've come back to had three tribes, not two. The Arab, the Jew, and the European. Now, this European, mostly Europeans, there are some Americans also involved. And this was shocking. They have come to Israel for one reason only. Mostly subconscious, they don't even know they are doing this. To find a Jew doing wrong and to destabilize the state of Israel. And that is frightening. They call themselves people of peace and love. They call themselves peacemakers. Some of them say they have come to teach Israel, the Jews, democracy, which is frightening. So the Germans come to teach Israel democracy, verstehst du? And And all they are doing is spending every free moment of their waking hours trying to catch a Jew doing something wrong, and then they can send it to the world.
These are the Europeans.
These are the NGOs,
and Americans too?
Americans too. NGOs, but Americans are not as strong in this field yet.
Okay,
at least,
I want to give our audience a sense of what you're talking about, because you talk early in the book about a German woman you're sitting with at a movie theater. And she says she fell in love with Israel, you write, and so she came to Israel to help the Palestinians. And you say to her, you fell in love with Israel, but you came to Israel to help the Palestinians. And you then discover that the group that she is with is funded by the EU, who sponsor almost everything here. And you write, I, Tuvia, learned two things today from the way the EU is presenting Israel to the people who are visiting. The two things you learned: the Israelis crucified Jesus, and the Jews are brutal creatures. You remember writing that?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the experience you had. And by the way, it's one of many stories, many anecdotes you write about how you learn what these people are. And I want to draw your attention to one more chapter. For me, it was the most upsetting of all the chapters I read. It was a chapter where you are going on a tour with a group of Italians who are being led by an Israeli tour guide by the name of Itamar, correct? And Itamar is taking this group on a tour, and what you describe him as is a self-hating Jew. And at one point, he describes how Israelis basically stole the land from the Palestinians, and how they are, when he takes you to Yad Vashem, he makes a parallel between the Nazis and what the Israeli army is doing today. And when he's asked by one of the Italians on the trip, are you Jewish? He says, I was a Jew. I consider myself now to be an ex-Jew, a former Jew. And you write that you are somewhat surprised and taken aback by the extent of the hatred that you experience among the self-hating Jewish Israelis. Speak to our audience a little bit about this entire experience you had and how it was also part of what surprised you and what makes up a good part of Catch the Jew.
Yeah, it's a shocking, it's a surprising thing. I mean, the examples that you gave, Itamar Shapira, the Europeans are identifying Israelis that are self-hating and give them money and have them do the dirty work for them. It happens across places in Israel. Itamar Shapira, his name is Shapira, this is one example. Here is a project paid by the EU. They know the guy, they know what he will deliver. He takes young people, teenagers basically from Italy, in this case, takes them on a tour of Yad Vashem, and he tells them that what they see is subjective from the perspective of the Jews. It's not an objective, but what is objective is that Israel, the Jews, are murdering Palestinians, that there is a Holocaust committed by Israel against Palestine. And he goes on and on and on, telling all kinds of horrible stories what the Jews are doing. By the time you leave Yad Vashem, you think you saw Jews being killed, but you think you saw Palestinians being killed by Jews. That's the effect by the end of the day. And this is one of the most frightening things, and you see it across Israel. The left that I remember from my younger years, I'm still young. The left that I remember from my younger years was the left of Yeshayahu Leibovich, Professor Leibovich. They were against what they called occupation, but they were proud Zionists. They believed in the right of the Jews to live there in the Holy Land. The academic, the intellectual left that I met in Israel now, speaking with many professors and etc., noticed of the left, they tell me of a different dream they have. They have a dream of one state where the Jews will be the minority and where the Jewish state will be history. This is the wettest dream. It's frightening to see Jews talking like this. But they think this, and there is nothing you can do. This is what they think. They think that the Jews are cold people by nature. They think the Jews, these are Jews talking. So the Jews, like Gideon Levy said to me, correspondent for Arts, Gideon Levy said to me that the Jews have a racist DNA. It's basically Jews cannot help it. You are born Jewish, you have this DNA that makes you racist. But the Palestinians, on the other hand, are the sweetest people on the planet. They are so nice looking. They behave so nice. They are angels. And Palestinian culture is the best culture there ever was. The frightening thing is, when I ask these professors who champion Palestinian culture, have you read the Quran? It's in Arabic. How can I read it? They don't know one single word. Gideon Levy doesn't know a single word in Arabic. Never opened the Quran. What? Why are you? What is this in your head that you think that the Palestinian? I think they are so. This is like mind-boggling. They don't like Palestinians. They don't appreciate Palestinian culture. If you don't know nothing about Islam, if you don't know one single word in Arabic, how do you tell me you appreciate Palestinians? The majority of Palestinians are Muslim. No, nothing. Nothing. What kind of culture are you trying to preserve? But they use the Palestinians against their fellow Jews. These are Jews that have become affected with the Stockholm Syndrome. I'm identifying with my abusers. They want to be close to the European pie. They want to be invited for conferences and forums overseas. And they think the best way of doing it is by adjusting the European position. By the way, it happens today in American universities. Anti-Semitism is growing in academia. More and more and more. And one of the biggest problems is that Jewish organizations don't know how to fight it head-on. Look, from my experience, I can tell you I'm one person. I write for one of the most important German paper, and the books, bestsellers. How? One of the reasons is, first of all, you have to write well. You have to make your reader enjoy it. I'm not writing in anger. You know, you must inject humor into this. And I try to make non-fiction look like fiction, so there's a story going on, you know. But by the end of the day, the most important thing that I'm doing is I'm being fair and honest. Straight to the reader. You know, this is the facts. I'm sorry, this is what they are. I'm not a right-winger, I'm not a left-winger, I'm not a centrist. My job is to be a journalist. My job is to see something and write something. And what I write should reflect what I see, not what I wish it to be. And people are responding. And I think Jewish organizations should have done it. The State of Israel should have done it. I think they are not doing it. They have given up. They are allowing all these Europeans to go around and do the most horrible thing. Taint the mind of both Palestinian and Israeli. Because even the Red Cross, can you believe it? The Red Cross, I've always thought the Red Cross, they are the nicest people.
Right. Your
angels.
last gate is a fabulous story about the Red Cross.
It's like amazing what you see them, what they are doing. They are committed to destroy Israel. Doctors Without Borders, such a nice organization, humanist organization. I caught them red-handed, trying to invent diseases, going to Bedouins, trying to convince them they are sick, so they can put a report against Israel. I mean, this is like ridiculous. It's frightening. And I say, how come I know these things? I know Israeli knows this. Where are Israeli media? Where is the European media? I followed European journalists. It's part of the book. And I saw them as they make up realities. Right there in front of my eyes, I see them. And I start taking pictures and videos, and they run away from me.
But isn't that also professionally so upsetting to you?
It is very upsetting professionally. It's very upsetting for many, many reasons.
And as a Jew?
And as a Jew, as a human being, it's upsetting.
Yes.
I mean, it's like you see, I can trust. I went to one article, for example, BBC. I went to the place they went to, and because I can speak Arabic, I spoke to the people. I didn't have NGOs to tell me what happened. And every third line in the article of the BBC was a lie. This is from the Palestinian perspective, meaning these Brits hate the Jews much more than the Palestinians. That's the problem here. And Jews refuse to deal with it, don't know how to deal with it. And we'll see. We'll see how many Jewish organizations or Jewish papers even cover this book. Mm-hmm. Jews are so afraid to criticize. And what happens if you're afraid to criticize? You're going to pay the price.
Tuvia, you said a moment ago, you're not left, you're not right, you're not center. Well, that's impossible. You're somewhere. Where are you?
No, this is what I learned from the yeshiva. I have a combination of these things. This is what I learned. I learned, that this is what the Talmud gave me.
You love Israel?
I'll not answer these questions. As long as this book is running, I want people to understand one thing. I have not gone to the Middle East to defend Israel. I have gone there to find the truth. And the truth that I found is frightening. And it's dangerous to the state of Israel.
Define
to the future of the state of Israel.
Why is it frightening?
The elite of the Israeli society is self-hating. The Europeans are there pouring millions upon millions every year to destabilize Israel. BDS movements are growing, but that's why I don't believe in statements. My job is a journalist. And as a journalist, as Tuvia, I can tell you if I love Israel or not, but not here.
Fair enough. I want to ask you about one more meeting that was so fascinating to me because I've watched this woman for years on American television. Again, Tuvia gets to meet with everybody. I said, he's talking to the president of Israel, Shimon Peres, while he was still president, and his comment as Tuvia leaves is, how did you learn such good Hebrew? And he also meets with Hanan Ashrawi, who, of course, on American television represents the Palestinian position all the time. And in Catch the Jew, you quote her articulating the Palestinian claim to a view which seems to resonate with many young Americans and young American Jews. This is what she says as you report a conversation. You have a long meeting with her in person. She says, to me, the startling fact is that the Palestinians have been living on their land historically for hundreds and thousands of years, and suddenly they are told that they have to give up most of their land and that another state will be created. You also point out that she considers herself to be a Christian Palestinian, and there's an issue about how the Muslim Arabs, Palestinians, kick the Christian Palestinians out of Ramallah anyway.
Out of Bethlehem too.
Right, and she talks about how she considers the Palestinians to have preceded the Jews in biblical Eretz Yisrael, and later you meet with a Dr. Ehab, who also talks about that the Palestinians were from the Canaanite period. Mm-hmm. And in essence, that's the argument. Their argument is, it's not about 7th century Mohammed Islamic Muslim rule. It's about the fact that the Palestinians were there even when the Jews were slaves in Egypt. They come back to Eretz Yisrael. There are Palestinians there. They're called Canaanites at the time. They've been there before we were there. She doesn't even give you the satisfaction of telling you that there was a temple ever built. As far as she's concerned, it's up to archaeologists to determine whether there was or was ever not a temple, and I guess a temple. But her position is the Jews suffered in the Holocaust in Europe, and it's a European problem, and they come to the Palestinian land and take the land of Palestine from the indigenous Palestinians, and that she is therefore the victim.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you now as a journalist, just talk about your meeting with her, and how do you analyze the veracity, the factual truth that she's presenting to you, which is a truth you find many times when you talk to Palestinians in Catch the Jew?
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, if you understand not just Islam, but the Palestinian culture and the Middle Eastern culture, you understand it and you're fascinated by it. One of her circles, person of the circus, Khaled, told me that Palestine was created 14,000 years ago. Not 140, not 1400, 14,000 years ago. And he tells me this in a straight face. And what you have to understand about the Palestinian culture and this kind of culture, Middle Eastern culture, is, and that's, I love it, I'm in love with it. If I say something, it becomes a reality. Doesn't matter if it's like all the intellectual thought means nothing. If I say something, it becomes. If I say, a cat was here, and it took over a lion, carried the lion on its back, it's a reality. Doesn't matter. It becomes fascinating. And the other guy will tell you, but oh, it was not a cat. I saw, I saw an eagle carrying a tank. It becomes reality. And that's what's beautiful about this culture. And this is what Europeans don't understand, Americans don't understand, and Israelis don't get it. When I deal with Palestinians, they make up stories, I make up stories. And then we get along. We stand there for hours. And we can't stop. We become Jibril Rajub, the master spy of Palestine. That guy, the most powerful person, now he's playing with sports or whatever, God knows. But one of the most powerful people of Palestine. We became very close friends. He never figured out that I was Jewish, born in Israel. How? Because I know how to talk to him. I understand his culture. And for me, when I listen to this, it's like, okay, why 14,000? Why not 30,000? Between you and me, I think it's 30,000. Yeah, 30,000. So for me, it's a joke, you know what I'm saying? But, the implications are huge.
Because?
Because we don't speak the same language. I mean, Israelis with the Palestinians don't speak the same language. You don't understand. The Israelis come with a brainy thing.
It's two different realities.
Two different realities. Totally different realities. As Hanan Asrawi said to me, there was never a state, a Jewish state. Never. Jibril Rajub one day, I mean, this is like beautiful. Jibril Rajub one day, we are in his house in Jericho. And he says to me in front of his people, he says, Toby, because I called myself Toby the German. He says, Toby, from this day on, your name is no longer Toby. And I was like really frightened. He figured out what, you know what it means. If he knows who I am dead here, right here in his house. And he says, from this day on, your name is Abu Ali. Abu Ali. And all the people around him, was like, do you know what it means, Toby? It means the Karim, the respected, the courageous. This is the names they gave Adolf Hitler in Palestinian folklore. In literal Arabic, it means father of Ali. In real folklore, what it means, it's the courageous. And Adolf Hitler was that name. And then I see, and he's a moderate. And I'm talking with the people of his group, moderate people, all of them, the most moderate in the PLO.
And they'll kill you if they know who you are.
Of course. And they said to me, well, Abu Ali, you are one of us. Our blood, like yours, is German. We know the problem. If Rommel did not succeed, the Nazis did not succeed, that's the problem.
Tuvia, you were very honest about your assessment of the rise of anti-Semitism and almost its endemic nature. It's almost as if it was sort of suppressed and now it's just over. So it's not about, you're taking sides at all. I'm asking for your objective view here. Can there be peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians? If there's such a different worldview, sense of reality, sense of justice?
As two states, no.
No.
No. Sadly, no. It cannot happen, it cannot be. I mean, the reason is very simple. Many reasons, but one reason in general. The history of nation building, of human nation building, is this. We are in America. I know it happened long ago, but it would happen again if it were up to now. What happened? There were some Indians, and then some white people came, and they killed the Indians, and they took over. That's what happens with countries. If I get your territory, if I win a war, I either kill you, I subjugate you, or I expel you. In rare cases, I'll make you a citizen be on my terms. That's the way the world works. The Jews were survivors of Holocaust and of pogroms and never had a state and did not have a state in 2,000 years. Thought they can reinvent the wheel. 67 war, they have decided not to annex and not to kill the people, not to expel them, but to do some kind, God knows what it is, a very complex Talmudic things they did with these areas, called 1967. I was like, nobody knows it, even if the Jews cannot figure it out. This is not the way to do it. You want to be nice, and you think you can build a state like this? I'm sorry. Go somewhere else. This is the reality of how it works, and that's why you have a problem.
What will happen? What will happen?
What would happen? What happened in every country? You do it very fast and you do it clean.
Yes, but what's going to happen now?
What's going to happen now? The only way to happen now is to understand that we are in the West, and we believe that if there is a problem, we have to solve it. But the Jews have to realize, the Israelis, that in the Middle East, we don't solve problems. The Sunnis and the Shiites, they are thousands of years at each other, and it ain't going to stop, and it ain't going to finish. That's the world we are in the Middle East. There is a problem, okay. Sorry, we cannot fix it, and we are just going to keep on living.
Mm-hmm. We'll just keep on
living. And that's why they have to understand. The last time the Germans tried to make a solution to the Jewish question, it ended up in Auschwitz. Don't try to solve, I say to the Europeans, don't try to solve the Jewish question. It's not your problem. Get out of there.
Come here. Give me your hand. You are fabulous.
Thank you, you too.
You are fabulous. Thank you for this. But I will only let you go if we put a semicolon. You'll come back and we'll talk about some of the things you've written and some of the other things you've done.
By all means.
I wish you called Tuvias. You've done a wonderful book in Catch the Jew, but it's more. You have a wonderful neshama. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
It's been an honor to meet you.
Same here. Thank you.
Tuvia Tenenbom, author of Catch the Jew, published by Geffen Books. You should try to get it. It's a wonderful, wonderful read, and he's a wonderful guy. As always, I invite you to be in touch with me with any thoughts or comments you may have to any of the things that Tuvia has said on this edition of L'Chaim. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook wall, tweet me. I would love to hear anything you have to say. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. L'Chaim, my friends, to life.
L'Chaim is a presentation of Jewish education in media.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.